I am often asked about a popular question, what is a VPN versus what is a proxy? Let me help you understand the difference between the VPN and a proxy. The basic purpose of a VPN versus basic purpose of a proxy defines what is a VPN and what is a proxy. A proxy usually acts as an intermediate or a middleman which routes access to the internet, as simple as that. For example, I do not have access to this computer. I want access to this computer. So what I do, I connect my system to a computer which is on the same network, which has access to the internet, and from there I access the internet, right? So which means it acts as a middleman. On the contrary, what is a VPN? VPN are installed on systems which already has access to the internet. However, it does not have probably secured access, or we want an enhanced security or privacy for the particular user session. So what we do, we install a VPN. So the objective of a VPN, the objective of a proxy is very simple. A VPN is used for secure, full encrypted channel. Whenever you are browsing the internet, the complete channel is completely encrypted. On proxy, on the other hand, it does not work like that. You don't even know if there is an encryption in place. The encryption can be forcefully applied on the proxies. However, these days, modern proxies do support that. However, it necessarily is not that all proxies support encryption, right? So that is one. And number two is, let's talk about the protocols, right? So talking about security protocol, VPNs usually use AES for encryption. AES for encryption, proxy usually lies on the HTTPS for the encryption. It usually does not enable encryption unless and otherwise we deliberately enable it. And talking about other key factors, VPN has a very strong authentication mechanism, which means if I have a VPN on my system, for me to connect from this system, it has to get authenticated to the VPN server. To get authenticated, you need to have a username, password, the protocol, and the IP address for my VPN client to connect to the VPN server. As simple as that. As soon as that authentication is successful, my system is issued a new IP address from the VPN server, like how a DHCP server does. DHCP stands for Dynamic Host Control Protocol. However, it does the same action of issuing a particular IP address to a VPN client. But on the contradictory, proxy usually connects to a remote system which has port 80 or port 8080 open. Right, 80 and 8080 is also usually used for HTTP proxy as a service, which means a particular system with port 8080 open, 8080, I can actually enable a certain configuration on my browser to connect from my browser directly to that IP address on that particular port, which allows me the internet access from that particular machine. So I actually get shared IP address, which means there is someone on the internet who has the same IP address while I am using the internet. The IP address is what I am getting. There will be someone also who will be using the same IP address. But on VPN, it is not like that. When the authentication happens, the VPN service provider actually issues a new IP address to the VPN client. Talking a little more about the compatibility, right? VPNs usually are almost a de facto standard in almost all devices today, starting from Windows, Linux, Macintosh, Android, iOS, and so on. But today, let me help you understand, it's not just PCs and servers, it is also applicable in routers. So if you have a router which has a VPN option, it can also have a VPN connected to a remote VPN server. On the contradictory, compatibility for proxy, you need to have an option on your application. It's majorly application specific, which means the application should support an option called proxy, enable proxy, and route the traffic through that particular proxy, right? So talking about other protocols that VPN follows, VPN actually works on majorly two popular protocols. One is OpenVPN, which is also the de facto protocol. It's an open source protocol, and you also have something called the IKE2, which is the Internet Key Exchange 2. It's a version 2, which is again VPN specific protocol. And there are open source VPN servers that are available in the market today, which means you can have your own VPN server installed and have your own existing VPN client to connect it, or Microsoft Windows already has a default VPN client installed in almost all the systems. You can make use of that to connect to the remote system. Apart from these differences, let me talk about three important tests that proxies versus VPN actually have to, these are the three key parameters or tests that you will have to check before getting a VPN or a proxy. Number one, you have to check a MITM check, which is man in the middle attack check. So making sure your data that is flowing between your system and the remote system cannot be snooped. If it is a VPN, most likely will not be, right? But in a proxy, there are high chances it can be. Number one. Then you have something called the DNS Leak Test. So as you're all aware, whenever we browse the internet, there is a DNS query that is going, and DNS query is responding back saying, this is the IP address of so-and-so.com. Right? You are actually using a particular IP address, as in your computer uses that particular IP address to make the connection established. Very important. So when you're using a VPN, even the DNS query does not happen from your computer. So the DNS query also goes to the VPN server, and the VPN server does the DNS query. And talking about proxies, it is not like that. The DNS query most likely happens on your own computer, and the IP address that is fetched from the DNS server is then routed through the proxy server. Am I clear? And the last but not the least, there is a most important policy that we all have to check, which is a no log policy. What is a no log policy? No log policy simply means that you have to check if your proxy provider or the VPN provider does not maintain any logs. Right? It is a key parameter, because in case you are looking for privacy, anonymity, or etc., you have to make sure your logs are not maintained by a third party. So popular providers today offer no log policy. Right? So I think these are the key parameters, and both pros and cons, as well as key parameters that you will have to check before you go on for a VPN or a proxy. I hope you all had something to learn from this. In case you did, please consider giving a like or subscribing. Thank you.